Hello, I'm Carole MacDiarmid, the EAP Manager for Teacher Development and English for Academic Study at the University of Glasgow. Thank you for inviting me to speak at your symposium. In Glasgow, I run the TESOL programmes, teaching EAP courses and oversee EAP Teacher Development and Induction in English for Academic Study. In this talk, I will explore what is involved in developing the teacher knowledge base and CPD provision for EAP teachers. I'll be drawing on research and practical applications from my own context. In order to develop CPD provision, we need to consider a number of factors. What the EAP teacher knowledge base is, in order to identify what aspects of knowledge may need to be developed, who we are working with, the teachers and what they bring to EAP, what expertise and knowledge we can build on and develop, and then how we can approach this. Here, obviously, I'm thinking specifically about CPD. I'll first look at the teacher knowledge base, go on to look at approaches we have used to identify teacher needs, and then present a variety of ways in which we facilitate CPD. These may then prove useful in developing CPD for EAP teachers in your own context, and also possibly areas where we might collaborate in developing such provision. So, the EAP teacher knowledge base requires an understanding of the academic context and student needs, so the wider university context. What does it mean to be studying as a student at whatever level in the university? What level of study are the students and what type of course they are on? Is this a preparatory course before their degree, during their degree, and in-sessional? Is it generic or embedded? Are the students undergraduate, postgraduate, on taught courses, research courses? And what academic disciplines and subjects are they on or going on to? So having a clear idea of the student needs. We need to think about the content knowledge, what academic language, skills, literacies and practices do they need to be familiar with? What are the relevant features of academic communication and text? And pedagogical approaches. How are the subjects taught? Because this can have an impact on EAP courses. And how can EAP courses be effectively delivered? These features are explored and expanded upon by Schulman, Ferguson and the Barley Competency Framework for EAP teachers, and I'll now go on to talk a little more about these. Schulman sets out a taxonomy for EAP teacher needs that can be applied to a range of contexts. These include pedagogical knowledge, the skills for teaching that are relevant more generally and not necessarily specifically tied to a subject area. For example, how to engage learners, managing interactions, classes, and so on. Content knowledge. What's the relevant content knowledge that a teacher needs? So in this case, for EAP, what relevant language, skills and strategies and so on do they need? Pedagogical content knowledge refers to specific approaches to best teach a subject area. Curriculum knowledge, the knowledge of the overall curriculum and where the subject fits in. The knowledge of learners, context and knowledge of learner needs for that specific context. And then more recently, the teacher knowledge base has been developed and expanded on by Kohler and Mishra, who talk about the technological pedagogical content knowledge, a framework that aims to promote meaningful integration of technology into learning and teaching and requires a careful and principled consideration of how to blend pedagogy, content, technology. Obviously, that's really quite relevant these days. So in this talk, I'm really going to concentrate particularly on content knowledge for EAP teachers, pedagogical content knowledge, and thinking about knowledge of learners and their contexts. Schulman provides a general framework. Ferguson provides a more detailed, specific framework for thinking about the content knowledge for ESP teachers, or EAP and ESAP, English for Specific Academic Purposes teachers. And here we can see the importance of understanding the specific disciplines, the disciplinary cultures, what are common practices, ways of communicating, ways of teaching, how knowledge is created and developed, as this influences how we approach teaching and how we communicate. And then this of course leads to consideration of the relevant genres in a subject. For example, what do students need to engage with? Is it lectures, laboratory work, seminars, the types of reading texts they engage with? Is it textbooks, articles, reports? A lab report in the sciences is quite different from an essay in arts and humanities. And then by extension, we need to think about the relevant lexico-grammatical and rhetorical features. So we're thinking about the linguistic aspects here. In addition to Shulman and Ferguson, we also have Barley Competency Framework for Teachers of EAP. Barley is our professional organisation and a global forum for EAP practitioners. And you can see here that to further inform how we might conceptualise the EAP teacher knowledge base, we can also turn to this framework. You can see here that it adds to Ferguson's content knowledge by thinking about academic context, discourse and disciplines. The student needs and learning are there, and highlights pedagogy through course delivery, both teaching and assessment practices. So we're starting to think about pedagogical content knowledge there. It also identifies programme development expertise in EAP. We need expertise to develop EAP courses and materials and that the teachers will work with. And within that, we think also about quality assurance and quality enhancement. Conrad will talk through the QA and QE aspects in regards to the Barley accreditation scheme also. You can also see here the importance of professional development, research and scholarship. That is the situated research of teaching and learning for and by EAP practitioners in this context. Together, these frameworks can guide the development of EAP courses and CPD provision for EAP teachers. In my specific context, these aspects and areas have been informed and been applied to the development of a range of EAP and ESAP courses. We run some specific courses in collaboration with academic departments. We negotiate and collaborate with departments to do needs analysis to find out what students need, even in courses that maybe don't have input from the academic departments. Some of our courses do. For example, we have lectures facilitating seminars and problem-based learning sessions on some of our subject-specific courses. Our courses tend to work for students that are a low B1 to C1+ on the Common European Framework. We have courses that are for a range of stages of study for undergraduate to postgraduate students. We have preparatory, so pre-sessional courses that are developing academic language skills and literacies before degrees, along through to in-sessional during degree support. And these are very much context specific. They're designed for the students in going on to a range of programs in our university. The design of each course is based on needs analysis of students and academic subjects, and both teaching and developing these courses themselves, often with experienced peers, provides opportunity for professional development. But we also provide a range of specific CPD opportunities. When we're thinking about developing our programme or our CPD offerings, we first of all need to think about the EAP teachers that we're working with, so identifying their current level of knowledge and expertise in any specific team. There are various routes into EAP. In our department, we have a core team of expert EAP teachers, but each year we recruit large numbers of teachers to work on our intensive summer courses. These are our pre-sessional courses that are just before the students start university. And they come from a range of backgrounds. They are usually, in our context, have specific experience in language teaching, but not necessarily in EAP. They might have developed experience in EAP, but not necessarily looked in much detail at content knowledge, partly because there are a few courses for EAP teachers. So we have to look at the teachers and think, what's their general level of knowledge? Do they know a lot about languages and language learning, about language teaching? What do they know about EAP? We found that we very often need to work and develop on knowledge of academic language and genres and specific disciplines, and for some knowing more about the context. In identifying EAP teacher needs, I'm going to give two examples. One is from my own context and how we do it. So as part of our professional development provision, we conduct observations. These are primarily developmental observations, but they do provide a source of information for workshops. We might identify that teachers would benefit from, in this last year, thinking about technological pedagogical content knowledge, or more knowledge of different academic genres in different disciplines. We include a teacher self-assessment, which is based on the Barley Competency framework, as are our observation discussions. And we ask teachers to identify what they need to work on and what areas they're interested in exploring. Each year we can then identify different areas to work on in our induction programs, and also for people that are around year-round, our CPD workshops. I've also recently carried out some research on our with our teachers and observers on our observation cycle. So in our observations, we always have a pre-meeting where teachers talk through what they're planning to do and their planning decisions, observe lessons, and then have a debrief. And the debrief and discussion is based around the competency framework, the Barley Competency framework, because it provides our specific EAP focused areas to discuss. In my research though, which was with focus groups and interviews with both the teachers and observers, we learned quite a lot about EAP teacher needs and the importance of collaborative work, the value of peer observations. We found that although the teachers found their individual observations very useful for themselves, it was actually the observers that were getting to see a wide range of EAP teacher provision. So we've built in more types of observations that are available, from peer observations, what we call blind observations, where a teacher isn't observed but has a pre and post meeting to discuss how their lessons and their planning went. We also make use now of recorded observations, and we've built in more collaborative planning opportunities where groups of teachers will plan for an observation together, each teach their own lesson, and then discuss afterwards how that went. So these areas help us develop pedagogical content knowledge. They identify areas but also help teachers develop pedagogical content knowledge. Another example I have for identifying EAP teacher needs and areas of expertise is a project that I carried out with a colleague from University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. It was a UK-Brazil collaborative project. Here we were looking at teacher needs in context, but the teachers all had a range of experience because they were working on different programs. We used focus groups and interviews to talk to these teachers. Some were undergraduates, language teachers, but teaching English to students in other disciplines. Some were PhD students, and some were very expert English for specific academic purposes teachers there. In the findings, we identified the importance of their own academic practices, and this relates back to one of the points in the Barley Competency framework, or the importance of scholarship. So, for example, PhD students who were also writing and publishing had a very keen understanding and knowledge of communicative purposes, of academic writing and publications, a strong sense of academic genres. They were also in linguistic areas, so they had very good understanding of language of the discourse. But undergraduate students are obviously limited by their own experiences, in the same way that an EAP teacher may or may not have engaged in a lot of further study. So the scholarship and engaging in scholarship and thinking about their own practices was important. We identified that teachers tended to know linguistic aspects, but apart from the specific PhD students, relatively less knowledge of the link between language and genres and how language is used in specific types of academic communication, and still relatively little knowledge of the different disciplines there. So we identified different features of teacher knowledge base that they had, and from that we developed some EAP teacher toolkits to develop awareness of academic language and discourse within disciplines and contexts, of academic practices through experiential learning tasks, and a self-assessment of their own learning needs. These toolkits are publicly available, and there's a link to this in the references. So those were examples of how we identified EAP teacher needs. In terms of teacher development, along with our observation cycles, we offer a range of opportunities here. So we have self-directed programs, individual or development for individual groups and networks, CPD programs. So we have an induction program every summer where we look at specific aspects that are relevant to those courses. It might be seminar discussions around new research that is coming out. It might be specific work on teaching particular areas or assessing students' work. We also facilitate scholarship and research by providing time and mentors to develop small research projects, and we also support teachers working towards the Barley Fellowship and other internal awards, and we also have specific TEEP courses that are available. So for an example of our induction and CPD programs, these can include workshops which might be requested by teachers or there to develop teachers. So for example, we have done workshops on course design and materials design to facilitate those engaging with course design themselves, discussion seminars, as I said, based on aspects of research. We have peer observations. We have reading groups which are more informal but might explore any area that is of interest. One that we've been looking at or can look at recently is a collection of pedagogies, approach to pedagogies in EAP, and the reference there is to a collected edition of pedagogical approaches in different contexts around the world. So for example, teacher development in South Africa, students on undergraduate preparatory programs in Gulf countries, and so on. We have a very specific TEEP online course. It's a TEEP master's course that is part of our master's provision, but we have a standalone teaching EAP course which explores the theoretical underpinnings of EAP for teachers and helps to develop content knowledge and to an extent pedagogical knowledge and knowledge of student needs and the context. And there is also the Barley TEEP Fellowship Scheme. The fellowship scheme has a series of levels from associate to fellow to senior fellow. The framework works towards developing expertise across someone's career and involves development of a specific portfolio of evidence and knowledge. So there's a variety of ways in which we can develop EAP teacher needs through formal to less formal networks and groups. And that's my last part here, is CPD via networks and events. So I run a local network. This is a very informal one for people in the north. This means Scotland or north of England. We have free events where different universities will say, I'll hold an event, anyone can join, and it might be a short presentation. People might be invited to talk about courses they're doing. The last one I think was on critical thinking. We have one coming up soon on the changes to work online. There are also national and global networks. For example, Barley, as I said, our professional organisation, has the biennial conference. We have professional issues meetings and special interest groups. The special interest groups are free and open to anyone and are increasingly international because we are all online. People can join these events. There are also Teaching English and Teaching in English network, which has a specific EMI section. So in summary, what I've been trying to talk about or focus on is the importance of identifying EAP teacher needs. Who are your teachers and what do they need at different levels? What aspects of the EAP teacher knowledge base do we need to identify? That knowledge base can be developed by teachers themselves exploring academic contexts and by centres developing their own knowledge of context, disciplines, discourse and so on. And then identifying and applying context-specific approaches to CPD. These are references that may be of interest to you. And thank you very much for listening. Please do feel free to put questions in the chat.